The Clemson Tigers gear up to face the Louisville Cardinals this Saturday night in Death Valley. It's the start of a critical 5-game November slate, and the tensions are high. Clemson's primetime showdown marks their third night game at Death Valley this season. With a 22-game home night win streak since 2013, the second longest in the nation, the Tigers are ready to defend their turfs. Clemson has stormed to a 5-0 start in ACC play, dominating with a staggering 225 to 107 point differential, an average victory margin of 23.6 points, a true display of power.
4th and 16, here comes the pressure on the blitz. Down the middle for Hopkins, he makes the catch to 40. Holy cow! What a catch by Hopkins in the
Welcome to Season 3, Episode 10 of the Nachos Analysis College Football Show. I'm Drew Archer, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Matthew Johnson. How's it going, Matthew?
Everybody, good to be here. How did your weekend go, Drew?
It was a lazy weekend at home. The plan was to watch a lot of football. I did that. Wasn't a whole lot of good football on, in my opinion. I was the first slate on Saturday. I was disappointed in every game I had on my TVs. Some better games at 3:30 slate, but just a weekend of football. How about you?
Yeah, it was a little different for me. It was probably the best weekend for Clemson to have a bye because, like you said, the week's slate was not that great. And my parents took the bye weekend to come out into Denver and hang out for the weekend. And it was my mom's birthday on Saturday, so shout out to my mom. Happy belated birthday.
Oh, yeah. Happy birthday, Betsy.
One of our most loyal listeners. It was one of her rules for my dad this weekend. No football on Saturday. So I was keeping up with scores and like our picks and stuff, but I didn't watch a single full game from start to finish. So you're going to have to carry this week 9 recap.
All right. Well, like I said, there wasn't a lot of games I was interested in, but we will run through some of the ones of note. You and I were talking off air about this one, Syracuse Pitt. I was kicking myself because outside of the pick'em contest, just me personally, I was minutes before this game kicked off. I was like, all right, I'm going to go with Pitt. They're definitely the better team. And then I somehow talked myself into going with Syracuse minus 4.5, and that did not last long at all. Pitt gets out this one with a victory of 41-13. Syracuse, 3 pick sixes in the first half. I believe it was a total of 5 interceptions the entire game.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've seen something. I think we'll talk a little bit about it later, but Pitt is one of those teams that is like the only team almost controlling their own destiny in the ACC right now.
Yeah. So, we will touch on that in a little bit. But them and SMU, newcomer to the ACC, coming in hot first year. We talked about that last week. That was one of my preseason win total under picks and making me look like a fool with that one. Boise State, UNLV. Boise State wins this one 29-24. It was one of those Friday night matchups. It was a good game. Unfortunately, I could not watch it. It started at like 10-something. I believe it was like on Fox or something. I can't remember. So I go to the app and then it says it's not part of my package. So I was not able to watch this one. But Boise continuing to make moves this season. One game I know that is of note to you. You and I talked about Liberty last week. Liberty goes on the road to Kennesaw State. Kennesaw State, was this their first win of the season?
Yeah, they were completely defeated. I think 0-6 coming into this game, and Liberty undefeated going into this game.
The Liberty Flames go down in flames, 27-24 there. So that removes them from eligibility into the college football playoff.
Yeah, I think, was this the Friday night game too, or Thursday night? Like one day after we were talking on air about
I think it was Thursday.
How good our Liberty playoff picks were looking. And then they lose to the worst D1 team. But I did see like a funny little note about this game. So Kennesaw State beat Liberty. Liberty beat Old Dominion. Old Dominion beat Georgia State. Georgia State beat Vanderbilt. And Vanderbilt beat Alabama. Alabama beat Georgia, and Georgia beat Texas. So there's Kennesaw State, the Owls, their case for getting into the playoff.
They'll be the first, 7-loss team to make the playoff?
I'm sure that might be their only win of the season, but for some reason they did it against the best team on their schedule.
Yeah. So shout out to Kennesaw State. If I'm being totally honest, I didn't know they had a football team. I know they have baseball. Clemson plays them from time to time. But and then you mentioned Vanderbilt in Texas. Vanderbilt had a chance. They fall to Texas by a score of 27-24. The Commodores did not get to rush the field again this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, still impressive that they were even able to keep it this close. And then even crazier than that is Vanderbilt is entering week 10 as a touchdown underdog to Auburn after beating Alabama and keeping it close with Texas in the same season.
Is that on the road in Auburn?
I think so, but I don't know that that is like that big of a deal right now with the way Auburn's program is.
Yeah, I don't know how I missed that one. I like that bet there. I might take that one. But speaking of bets and safe bets, a safe bet is Pump Monkey Septic Service. You've heard us talk about them all season long, owned and operated by Clemson alumni Alan Powell. Give him a call at 864-710-2211. Alan services the upstate. He gives you quality, honest service. He'll come out, he'll check your septic tank and tell you, hey, you don't actually need your septic tank pumped. Does good work, honest work, and give him a call because the holiday season is coming up and you don't want those septic tanks backing up while you have company. So 864-710-2211. When the dump's funky, call Pump Monkey.
Twitter polls.
All right, with no Clemson game to review this week, we're jumping right into the Twitter poll. This was spurred by my disdain for Louisville and their uniforms. I probably told this story before, but like 4 or 5 years ago, Clemson baseball was playing Louisville, and I was sitting out in right field and heckling the right fielder, and I asked him, I was like, how come Louisville has the worst uniforms in literally every sport? And the player turned around and like he said, you're not lying. So even their own players hate their uniform. So this week's question that you could find at Nachos_analysis on Twitter was, what team has the worst uniform in the ACC? The options were obviously Louisville, NC State, Miami, and I was struggling to find another one, so I threw Georgia Tech in there. Before we discuss the results, a couple listener responses. Kimberly gets in. Shout out to Kimberly of the Cajun Cafe. Says Miami and Georgia or Virginia Tech. John Chauncey gets in and says, my vote is others. He says Stanford and anything Argyle. I don't have an issue with Stanford stuff. I kind of like their uniforms. And then Ray LaFleur says Georgia Tech uniforms are fire, so he disagreed with Georgia Tech even being on this list. Matthew, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I might be in the minority, and I think overall Louisville's uniforms are kind of cool. The one thing I hate about them is they have like the huge L on the pants, at least for some of the alternates, and I think that's ridiculous looking. But overall, like, they're more out there and not classic, but Louisville really isn't that like classic school, so it makes sense to me to have like kind of crazy uniforms. But I think NC State is a little bit worse. They're pretty bad. I do like their helmets and when NC State wears black, but just their like normal uniforms are pretty atrocious. But also I wanted to do like a honorable mention to Wake Forest because for some reason their uniforms just look like they're stuck in 2007. They just haven't been updated in a while, and the jerseys look like those jerseys Clemson wore in like 2006 or something with the like stripes down the side of the body right here. So I'm going to go with those two. And I agree. I don't have any problem with Stanford's uniform. And I did want to point out too, I think all 4 of your options are the 4 Adidas ACC teams.
There's a trend there. I do not like Adidas's football uniforms. I'm not sure. Does Georgia Tech use Adidas?
I think they do. They at least used to be Russell, but I'm pretty sure once their Russell contract ended, they switched over to Adidas.
Yeah, I definitely know Louisville, NC State, and Miami are Adidas, and I've never liked Adidas's uniforms. I'm going to go with Louisville. That's what sprung this question or poll this week. I hate the like shiny holographic stuff that Adidas puts on a lot of their uniforms. You see it a lot in NC State and Miami stuff as well. Shout out, underrated uniform is very simple, clean, and basic. one of my favorite uniforms in the ACC is Boston College, especially with the accents they've added to the stripes and stuff this year, and then the BC with the eagle in the middle. That's one of my favorites. But yeah, I'm going to go Louisville here. The way that the poll shook out, it's one of our closest polls we've had in a long time. 15% of the vote was for Georgia Tech. So a lot of those people, or most of the people that voted, kind of agreed with Ray LaFleur there that there is no issue with Georgia Tech's. Louisville with 25%, NC State with 26%, and Miami with the worst uniforms in the ACC, 34%.
Very interesting results there. I think Boston College, I really like their red bandana alternates that they use too at Boston College. And I don't really have that big of a problem with Miami's uniforms. So maybe they won the poll here because they're the biggest threat to Clemson right now.
When it comes to uniforms, obviously you can probably tell this by my vote for Boston College being one of my favorites. I like plain, simple, classic, like Alabama's uniforms, the Green Bay Packers uniforms, just very basic and boring. I like how boring Clemson's uniforms are.
Yeah, I agree. And another uniform I thought of is Pitt that I don't like. It's not that the uniforms are bad. I just really don't like the blue and yellow combo that they're using right now. Like, it was more dated, but the like navy blue and gold that they used in like the early 2000s when Larry Fitzgerald was there, I kind of like that a little bit better.
I like their current ones better than that navy blue, but that all-time uniform matchup a couple years ago when they came to Clemson wore all orange, and then they wore their yellow helmets, blue jerseys, yellow pants, just all the colors out there. That was a cool game to watch. I believe that was during COVID. I think I was sitting by myself in the stadium for that game.
Fact or fiction? All
right, fact or fiction? I was struggling with some of these today, so bear with me on some of these facts and fictions. Clemson, SMU, and Miami finish undefeated in the ACC regular season play this year.
I am going to say fiction, but I'm not really sure. I just really hope not, because it would be a really bad look for the ACC to the first year of divisionless football in the ACC to have the championship game teams decided by essentially a coin flip. Because as it stands right now, Miami, SMU, and Clemson don't play each other in the regular season and have the opportunity to finish the regular season undefeated in conference play. Then it's just up to chance pretty much of who gets the shot into the conference championship game. So
it'll come down to opponent's winning percentage, which I think I saw a thing this past week. Clemson has the highest opponent winning percentage, which is kind of hard to believe because we ain't played nobody yet, Paul.
Yeah, I think I saw that too, that Clemson would be in the lead right now. But how is that even possible? Just one more thing. What I kind of referenced earlier in the episode, that Pitt is the only team that controls their own destiny in the ACC right now because they play both Clemson and SMU. They have SMU this week, I believe. So if Pitt wins both of those games, it makes it a lot easier for Clemson and Miami to get in. And it really sucks for Pitt to just have one conference loss and not make it. Or do they have a conference loss? Oh yeah, Pitt is 7-0, fourth in the ACC right now. So they got SMU and Clemson and Louisville, so it'll be a tough stretch to end the season for Pitt. But like I said, the only team really controlling their own destiny here.
Yeah. I'm going to say fiction that all three of those teams will not go undefeated, I think. SMU's got a tough matchup this week. Miami is a loss waiting to happen. I think it's just a matter of time. They've had a lot of close calls. Eventually those catch up to you. So I'm going to say fiction there. Fact or fiction? Kirby Smart dresses up as Nick Saban for Halloween.
I don't even know what this means.
Me and my dad were talking about it the other week, and I'm like, Kirby Smart is a Nick Saban wannabe with an anger problem. And he came under his tutelage. I don't know. Kirby Smart can't beat Alabama to save his life. Halloween is also Nick Saban's birthday. That's one of the funniest birthdays, I think, of all time, that Nick Saban, the no fun haver, has a Halloween birthday.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how to answer this question, but it did make me think. I was like, I kind of like Kirby a little bit better just because his tantrums are funnier. Like, whenever he is yelling at the refs or something, he like I don't know. He's just like marching around the field, and he looks like a little cartoon character or something. But so,
and happens to occasionally shove a random player.
yeah, I mean, he probably should have got a suspension for that, but
yeah, he blacked out in his defense, is what he said at least. I'm gonna say fact just because I like the idea of Kirby Smart dressing up like Nick Saban. A little Halloween fun this week for you. And then this one with absolutely zero reference to anything related to sports, little Clemson reference, but fact or fiction, the pickle trend is getting out of hand. And for reference, this comes from, I went to Triple T's this weekend. I went and watched Clemson softball scrimmage, Queens College, I believe, last Friday night. Went to Triple T's and walk in, and just about every basic white girl is walking around with a martini glass with neon green liquid and a pickle spear sticking out of it. And then also I happened to notice on tap they had a Bold Rock, which is a cider pickle flavor. So fact or fiction, this pickle trend is getting out of hand.
I am going to say fiction because I will not allow pickle teeny slander on this podcast.
Has that been around for a while?
Yeah, it's been at least like the last 5 years, 5 to 10 years, they've had a pickle teeny. But the Bold Rock edition is new. That just came out like last month or something. So that's going a little bit too far. I don't know that I would be interested in trying that, but nothing hits like a pickle teeny.
Well, I do not like pickles, so that is not appealing at all to me. Even if I don't even know, even if I like pickles, I'd drink one of those. But I guess I don't spend enough time in Triple T's to realize that's been around for a while. I'm going to say fact, pickle trend is getting out of hand.
Weekly picks.
All right, time to review the Pick'em contest from week 9. Matthew and I cannot separate ourselves from each other. We both get 2 wins on the weekend, moving both of us to 20 points on the season. I was thinking about this punishment we were talking about with the whole Waffle House challenge, but in a bar type setting. I'm kind of okay with losing this one compared to the tattoo win last year, or the wear a Carolina shirt to the Clemson Carolina baseball game like I unfortunately had to do a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I do feel like this one does have a little element of fun in it. I mean, not that the other 2 punishments that we've done aren't fun ideas, but this one, like, the person doing it could still have a great time, at least for the first 4 hours or so, and then the next day is probably not going to be very fun.
No. I mean, if you lose, I might still come and hang out with you for a little while.
I would hope so. But I did also want to mention, while we are knotted at 20 for our regular season picks, I did pick up a point this week because Colorado hit their over win total 5.5. They got their 6th win, became bowl eligible this Saturday. So I don't know if you want to add preseason points, just pull them up at the end, or honestly, the way I'm keeping up with it right now, as we get them throughout the year, we can just have a separate count for them and add them into the total at the end.
Yeah, that's fine with me. That way we can see them. Your Colorado pick, you talked about how talented they were in the preseason when you gave out that pick, and I responded back with something along the lines of the fact that they're too talented, have too many transfers, and that would be the reason why they don't reach that win total. And I was wrong on that one.
Yeah, they've looked very impressive, and even these last couple weeks were games that I didn't expect them to win, but I think Dion learned a lot from last year. Last year was the year where they had too much talent and too many people to get the ball to. I feel like it just wasn't a cohesive system, but as of right now, they're rolling and looking pretty good.
Yeah, so Matthew, your favorite hit, your under hit, my favorite, and my under hit. So struggling with the underdogs and overs, even after you had a long streak going of hitting the underdog there for a few weeks to start the season off.
Well, hopefully we can get back into it this week, and I'll go ahead and start off with my favorite for week 10, and I am going to, I believe this is at home in Nebraska versus UCLA, and Nebraska is currently a 6.5 point favorite, and UCLA hasn't beaten a good team yet this year, so their 2 or 3 wins that they have on their record are a little deceiving. I think Nebraska handles that one.
Yeah, I like that pick. I am sticking in the Big Ten as well, and I'm going Ohio State as a 3.5 point favorite against Penn State. I'm counting on this to be the game that Penn State finally losing, because they lose a game, which this might not fall into that category. They always seem to lose a game they're not supposed to, get revealed as a fraud. I still don't think Penn State's the third best team in the country. So Ohio State 3.5 point favorite.
Yeah, I really was torn about picking that one because I was close to, but I just couldn't put my whole heart behind either side. I'm excited to watch it though this weekend. But moving on to over, I am gonna stay in the ACC, and Duke travels to Miami, and they're a 20.5 point underdog to Miami. Duke has looked pretty good this year, and like we've already mentioned, or you already mentioned, that Miami ekes out their wins, and it's going to catch up to them at some point. I think Duke can keep that way closer than 20.
Yeah, just a 1 point loss at home to SMU last week too, so I like that pick too. I'm going to the SEC with my underdog pick. It pains me to do this, but South Carolina 2.5 point underdog to Texas A&M at home. They should have beat LSU. They should have beat Alabama. I think that South Carolina gets a win this weekend, especially after an emotional victory for Texas A&M against LSU last weekend.
Yeah, I really like that one. I was really surprised that South Carolina is only a 2.5 point dog. I thought it could even be smaller, but I wouldn't have picked it, or I would have picked it if it was higher. Like if South Carolina was picked to lose by more than 3, I probably would have picked that for my underdog. All right, I am coming over to some 2 Big 12 newcomers for my over this week, and Arizona traveling to Orlando. Long trip for them. Both of those offenses love to score though, so over for that one is 55.5.
I'm going with the Service Academy game, Air Force at Army, over 41.5 points this week.
Yeah, that's not bad because I'm pretty sure the spread on that game is like 21. So
yeah, I believe Air Force has maybe 1 win this season.
Yeah, I think that's, and they might have won last week, or they had a close game last week. But gonna stay with the game we're about to talk about. This would have been a good segue if I would have made my pick second. But Louisville traveling up to Clemson. The line right now is 61.5, and while both of these offenses are really good, I just feel like it's going to be a little bit closer than that.
I considered picking that one here as well, and I'm just throwing something against the wall with this pick. So I'm going Texas Tech at Iowa State, under 56.5 points. I was struggling with the under this week.
Iowa State's been a surprise this year. They're still undefeated right now too.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's preview the game we're here to talk about. Clemson hosts Louisville this Saturday night, 7 o'clock, I believe, 7:30, 7 o'clock, something like that. It's always nice to get a night home game. Clemson overall 8-0 all-time against the Louisville Cardinals, 4-0 at home. The last time these two teams met was in 2022. Clemson won that by a score of 31-16. The spread on this game, 10.5 points, and as you mentioned, Matthew, 61.5 point total there. Clemson enters the game averaging 39.4 points per game against Louisville in 8 all-time meetings. Clemson's highest all-time scoring average against an opponent presently in a Power 5 conference. Dabo Swinney is attempting to move to 18-4 all-time in games immediately following open date, and Clemson was fortunate enough to have 2 of those this year. I think this is the 5th time in program history that Clemson has had 2 bye weeks in the season. Got a trivia question for you, Matthew. This one might be kind of hard to guess because it's asking for a specific year, but the trivia question is as follows. Clemson's attempting to improve to 15-4 all-time in games contested on November 2nd. It would be Clemson's 12th consecutive win in games played on November 2nd, dating back to what year?
Wow.
So just pick a random year.
It's a minimum 20 years ago. Because this will be the 20th game on November 2nd, this Saturday. So
it is far past 20 years from me.
I'll go pre-World War II and say like 1932.
Not a bad guess. Not a bad guess. It was 1946. against Virginia Tech, which was at that time VPI, not Virginia Tech at that time. So November 2nd has been a good day for the football program, 15-4 all time. Clemson enters this game ranked in the top 5 of the nation in both points per game and yards per game. Clemson, Miami, and Boise State are the only teams in the top 5 in both of these categories. Clemson with 42 points per game. That's 4th in the country. And yards per game, 490.4. That's 5th in the country for the Tigers. One depth chart note, Jay Haynes, backup running back, is now listed as the number 1 kick returner this week. Maffa was asked about it on Tuesday. He says, Jay is a real speed guy. There's nobody that I can see that can fit that job better than him. So what do you think of the change up there, getting Maffa out of there?
I really like it. I don't know whose decision it was to put our power running back returning kicks. Like, I feel like that has to be a speed guy, and Antonio Williams makes a lot of sense there. Or even Cole Turner is a little fragile, but if he's got the speed like they say he does, that's a good spot for him right there. So I'm excited to see Jay Haynes back there, and hopefully he can play his way into some more time.
Yeah. Heading into this game, we talked about it. I can't remember if this was before we started recording or not. Louisville has a nice offense. The defense, not so much. Could be a lot of points. You talked about the 61.5 point total. How do you see this game shaking out?
Yeah, I'm not too sure about it. This is definitely the game I felt the least sure about since the Georgia game, and I was sure that Clemson was going to get their ass beat in that game. So, but I think Clemson, it does win. It's just going to be the toughest game since Georgia, and like we talked about, their offense can move and score a lot of points. So the defense really needs to force turnovers here and to get Clemson like the plus in possessions. So I think that's going to determine who wins this game, really, is turnovers. And if Clemson can take care of the ball and force 1 or 2 turnovers on defense, they should win pretty easily.
Clemson's done a great job with forcing turnovers on defense this season. So you got to hope for that, especially as the Cardinals get the ball rolling. They got to clean some stuff up defensively. I don't think this is a game where you're going to see the reserves come in and give up some touchdowns. I think it's going to be tight, and the starters are going to be in there pretty much the entire game. I don't know. Maybe it's some optimism coming off of a week off, but I got a feeling that Clemson might cover the spread.
That would be surprising because, what is it right now, 10.5? I mean, I guess I could see that. I thought it was a little bit bigger. It might have started a little higher earlier in the week, but yeah, I'm a little worried about Clemson's secondary because Louisville has one transfer receiver from Alabama. They got some athletes out there, and I think I was just watching the broadcast of the Boston College Louisville game from this past weekend. I believe they mentioned that Louisville, in their head coach's first year last year, took in the most transfers of any D or Power 5 school, and then cut down a little bit this past year. But Louisville has talent, so I'm a little afraid of them against our secondary, especially like just a couple specific guys. If they scheme it out right, they can probably, get their matchups that they really want against guys who aren't great in man coverage on Clemson's defense.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those games where I hate to boil it down to something like this, but having that home field advantage, the Clemson crowd, shout out to Clemson Nation for always showing up. The crowds have not been spectacular this year. They'll pack the stadium, but it has not been very loud like it has been in years past. I also know that we have not had a big game, but this is one of those games that I think that the team's going to really rely on that home field advantage, getting the quarterback's head, that sort of thing. So
the only night game that's been at home this year was at App State. Has there been another night game?
We had App State and Stanford.
Oh, so like probably two of the least exciting opponents in the first half of the schedule were night games at home. So
remember when we were worried about App State immediately following Georgia, and then it was not a game for long.
There's a lot of different outlook about this team from that point. Just because the only thing we had seen from Clemson was slight improvement last year, a pretty bad offense, and then that did not change during the Georgia game. So become a long way since then. It's episode 10.
Yeah, 10 episodes in. We're past the halfway point of the season, and next Tuesday, many of you may be watching the presidential returns come in. I will be watching the college football rankings, the first one of the season, next Tuesday night. The only poll that matters. So, so that'll be interesting. I'm interested to see where, because Clemson did drop 2 spots. They fell out of the top 10 this week by not playing. They're 11th now. So we'll be interested to see what the playoff committee thinks. Obviously, with the way that Miami has played, a lot of people just have them as the front runner in the league, and all these projected models have Miami in the top 4 because they don't have a loss yet. But I'm interested to see what the playoff committee thinks of Clemson versus Miami when those come out next week.
Yeah, that will be interesting. I didn't even realize that the first rankings come out on Tuesday. What a busy Tuesday it's going to be. The election results aren't going to be in by Tuesday night, so might as well just watch the college football ranking anyway.
All right, well, thank you all again for joining us as you do each week, and join us next week as we talk some ball. Peace.